Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. Just wanted to talk a moment about my sci-fi series here. There's about 3 more books to come for this to be complete. But so far we have Escape from Planet Matriarchy, We Want Soviet Men, and Rocket Cadets in the 11th Dimension. This is all set primarily in the 25th century in a kind of sci-fi timeline that's based on like your old classic sci-fi B movies and Pulp Fiction, but from everything between Flash Gordon up through the early days of Star Trek. Mostly those 50s and 60s kind of sci-fi movies that get made fun of on Mystery Science Theater 3000 frequently. Escape from Planet Matriarchy was the starting point for all of this. In that game, you're playing where the player characters get to play 20th century NASA astronauts who get shot off into the future and crash land on the moon of Titan, which has been colonized by a radical group of women who have gone to great lengths to use genetic engineering to excise the Y chromosome from their planet, and how quickly everything gets destabilized when a bunch of 20th century astronauts crash land there, and their adventures to get off world. Followed up with that is We Want Soviet Men. It's pretty much just written as a source book to go with Planet Matriarchy. Has an adventure scenario in it to introduce a different campaign framework where player characters are playing Soviet crewmen on board a Soviet artificially intelligent starship. There's rules for playing the starship as one of the player characters. Once again, this is kind of slightly alternate timeline based on older science fiction concepts. Of the 3 games here, We Want Soviet Men, the ships are probably the most modern looking, your kind of Ridley Scott, Star Wars-y industrial junk ships. In some ways, it's a parody of Star Trek and kind of a commentary on Orwellian themes, let's say, with how the space Soviets are depicted. Them all being of equal rank and the entire hierarchy being controlled by artificially intelligent starship computers. Because humans can't be trusted, to not end up corrupting the systems is the only way for them to get complete and total equality. So all characters have the exact same rank, and that is, of course, comrade, and all that kind of good stuff. Rocket Cadets in the 11th Dimension takes us and depicts the 25th century version of NASA, as opposed to the 20th century crewmen from Escape from Planet Matriarchy. Details, people who come from several of the core inner planets of the solar system. Their training programs gives an alternate starship rules. NASA starships aren't, in control of everything in society, so that they're not playable in the same way. There is a feature in this game where it says the player characters are cadets. There's a special character for the game master to have. That's the cadet instructor. Someone who'll stay on board ship and help give them tips and suggestions and all that kind of stuff, but isn't there in the field with them. Otherwise this is supposed to be a mission where the cadets are doing their first little test flight on a rocket just to see how they handle themselves, and they encounter a dark mirror out on the edge of the solar system, which draws them into the 11th dimension, which is a weird, almost kind of fairyland, Spelljammer-esque kind of take on your kind of Flash Gordon type sci-fi setting, where you have a bunch of old, early 20th century style airships that look like B-52 bombers, and winged man eagles, living out in the outer gas shell of the solar system. It's it's a giant nebula made out of breathable air that surrounds a dead neutron star, and the queen of all the various kind of sci-fi inspired fairy folk is a little bit of a plot twist. Not entirely. You learn it pretty quick in the book, but I don't want to entirely spoil the surprise. But even if you don't include using any of that material for the 11th dimension, like I said, it still gives you all the stuff you need for NASA characters and NASA ships that you can also use so you can design NPCs or further adventures. Because once your astronauts get off of Titan, one of the options of people that they might want to hook up with is obviously, their counterparts in the 25th century. The 3 remaining books is going to be, one detailing Mars, which has been kind of co-settled by both Japan and America, And so it's this weird kind of Americanized version of old Japanese shogunate kind of culture, like the Japanese emperor is the emperor of Mars, and all that. But with a lot of stuff about branding and cyborgs and hacking and kind of a little bit of a cyberpunk intrusion into the 25th century. There's also going to be something about like a war for control of Planet B and the Proxima Centauri setting, and at some point I'll do like lost colonies and aliens and stuff for when the setting kind of advances to a point where the light speed overdrive has finally been adapted by several of the civilizations of the solar system, and so now you're having more classic Star Trek-y explore the galaxy type adventures open up as your timeline progresses, depending on what your characters do as they adventure in any one of these 3 campaign options that you have, courtesy of Total Party Skills. I'll leave a link in the description below that'll take you to the Total Party Skills page on Drive-Thru RPG, where you can find all these as PDFs, or if you want them in print, you can just run a search for these titles on Amazon.com, and you can get either of these 2 in hardcover or softcover. This one only comes in softcover because it's just a thin little source book that's kind of just an addendum. This is the core of the 3. However, this book, when I wrote it, I'd done some development on the rule system by then, so I wanted to include an extra rules chapter of the more updated version of the rules. Not so much revised. It doesn't really negate anything that's written in this book. It just better explains a few things and adds a few things to kind of round it out a whole lot better. So use that as you wish. But that also, though, allows you to use this purely as your standalone core book with that book if you don't want to get into some of the political angles that Escape from Planet Matriarchy brings up. So anyway, there you go. Have a good one. Stay waspinated. And, all the usual stuff. It's YouTube. You know what to do.